On this episode of the Jeff Does Vegas podcast.
A few years ago, we started watching some Vegas YouTube videos, and it was really cool for us because we didn't get to go as often as we would like. And you're watching it on a big flat screen TV, and you just kind of feel like you're there. And we thought, that would be a lot of fun to do. And there's no reason why we couldn't do that. Why don't we just give that a shot?
Las Vegas. It's more than just a city. It's a feeling. It's that feeling of excitement when you spot the lights of the strip out the airplane window. It's that feeling of awe as you stroll down the boulevard, taking in the sights and sounds. And it's that feeling of satisfaction, knowing that you're in the greatest city in the world. Over 42 million people from around the world share that feeling every year. And I'm one of them. Taking you to the world-famous Vegas Strip and beyond, my name is Jeff. And this is the Jeff Does Vegas podcast. Hey there, and welcome to episode number 96 of Jeff Does Vegas. Before we get into this episode of the podcast, I want to take a moment to thank my guest from the last episode, Best of Vegas award-winning trumpeter, composer, producer, and conductor, David Perrico. In addition to being the creator and arranger of Pop Evolution and Pop Strings Orchestra, David is also the band leader for the official house band at Allegiant Stadium for each and every Las Vegas Raiders home game. We talked about his musical background, his time in Las Vegas, and what it's like performing in front of 65,000 screaming NFL fans. If you haven't had a chance to listen as of yet, check it out in the archives at jeffdoesvegas.com or search out episode number 95, my special guest, David Perrico, on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. All right, let's do this. I absolutely love having other Vegas content creators on the podcast. It's always a blast having conversations with people who are as equally as or even more passionate about Las Vegas than I am. My guests for this episode are Jordan and Ashden, the creators and hosts of Show Me Vegas on YouTube. Hailing from Missouri, the Show Me state, the couple makes frequent trips to Las Vegas, sharing their adventures in vlogs posted to their 3,500 plus subscribers. They do room tours and hotel walkthroughs, restaurant and show reviews, and most recently, Jordan has begun sharing a weekly Vegas news update entitled, appropriately enough, This Week in Vegas. We talked about what sparked their love of Vegas, what inspired them to start vlogging their Vegas adventures, some of their favorite spots to stay and play, and much more. Please enjoy my conversation with Jordan and Ashden of Show Me Vegas.
We're just your average, Midwestern couple, just a run-of-the-mill couple from Missouri. We both grew up in Missouri. That's where we got the name for our Facebook page and our YouTube channel, Show Me Vegas. Missouri is the Show Me state, and not a lot of people probably know that, but that's how we chose Show Me Vegas. We wanted to put a little bit of local flavor into our name. And I grew up in Springfield. Springfield's claims to fame are Bass Pro Shops, Cashew Chicken, and Brad Pitt. And a little interesting side note, I went to the same high school as Brad Pitt. He is a lot older than me, so you can probably tell that watching our videos, but I did not know him. But, he did go to my high school. And
I'm actually from a very small town about an hour and a half, 2 hours north of Springfield. It's a population, I think, is of 2,000. And if there's anybody who's listening that watches or who's a fan of the Netflix series Ozark, I actually literally grew up on Lake of the Ozarks. You could see it outside my front door. So that's where I grew up. So
yeah, but we're, like I said, we're just a very average couple, just a normal Midwestern family. When I'm working in the finance industry, banking more specifically.
I work in healthcare. I'm a nurse practitioner in orthopedic surgery. So, and when we're not working, we've got two boys that keep us very busy with their sports and all their school activities. So,
which makes it all the more relaxing when we finally do get away and get to Vegas. So,
and something that I kind of love about your guys' videos is that you are right in my wheelhouse in that normally if you jump on YouTube and you start looking for Vegas videos and Vegas travel vlogs, you come across, it's a bunch of really young, attractive people who are partying it up at the clubs, and they're spending money that you have no idea how they got. It's just, it's not my Vegas vacation. And again, like you guys, as I say, are right in my wheelhouse with what you're doing. I love it.
Yeah, and I feel like you might have just taken a shot at our looks there. But, I think I get what you're saying. I do feel a little bit offended by that comment, but that's fair. I think that's fair to say.
Yeah, no, we're definitely, and later on we'll kind of tell, as far as by any means, we've not, we're definitely not the people who first stayed out at Cosmo or, these huge establishments. We've definitely grown as we've gone to Vegas. But no, we're not necessarily those young couples who you don't know where they actually got anything from. So
I'm lumping myself into that same looks category though. So, don't feel too bad. Don't feel bad at all about that. What is it that keeps bringing you back to Las Vegas? This is a question that I get asked all the time. I mean, pre-COVID, I was doing 7-8 trips a year, and people would always say, how can you possibly go somewhere that often? Like, how can you enjoy it? What is it that keeps taking you back there? So I'll hit you guys with the question. What is it that keeps bringing you back to Vegas?
Honestly, I think for us, it's the variety of things to do. We have been there several times, and I feel like we still haven't scratched the surface. I mean, as far as shows and restaurants and just, things to do there, it's always changing first off. And then even when it hasn't changed, there's just an immense amount of things to do out there. It's unreal.
Yeah. I think people who aren't as familiar with Vegas have this misconception that you're just having the same trip over and over again. And with Vegas, there is so much to do. You can go 20 times and not do the same thing twice. And then by then, there's new restaurants and new shows and new attractions that weren't even there the first time you went, or even say 5 years ago. So, they talk about Vegas being the city that's constantly reinventing itself. And that's the thing that I think lends it to a repeat traveler like us. We can go there as many times as our schedules will allow, and we'll never get tired of it. At least we haven't to this point. And as a matter of fact, I think we just like it more every time we go.
And was it love at first sight with Las Vegas for you guys? Because I know this happens to a lot of people, and I'm kind of in the same boat. It takes them a few trips to actually warm up. They go that first time and it's like, yeah, I really like this. This is great, but I don't know if I want to come back very often. And then the next thing you know, they're coming back 5 or 6 times a year. So how was it for you guys?
I'll answer that one first. For me, it absolutely was. I had not ever been there until I was 29 years old. And, I was familiar with a lot of the Vegas movies. Vegas Vacation was a big one. I loved it. And so I knew a lot about the city, and I knew it was a place I was going to enjoy just from the sheer spectacle of it. And the first time I ever went there, just walking the strip for the first time just absolutely blew me away. And, on my first trip, I walked by myself from the MGM Grand all the way up to Circus and back in one evening. And I felt like it just flew by. I couldn't believe what I was looking at. Coming from a mid-sized city in the Midwest, having never seen anything like that before, it blew me away. I knew it was a place I was going to come back to a lot. At the time, I didn't have the means to come back very often, but I knew it was a place that, as I got older and had a little bit more, means to do that, it was a place I was going to want to come back to.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I will say, I guess our first trip together was in 2013, and that was my first time actually going. And I fell in with it right away. I could see where someone would be a little, I think, like Jordan was saying, at first we didn't have as much as the means to kind of do all the things that we would have normally done. And so, but for me, I love history, and I love the history of Vegas. And I feel like Vegas is one of those places where, there's the history and then there's the new, and they can combine together. You can get a little bit of everything there. And so that's what really drew me in at first, was the history. And honestly, yeah, I mean, it was definitely love at first sight, I think, for both of us. So. Yeah.
And I'll say I'm a Vegas nerd in that I love to know, I love the history of, this is what used to be on this property. And the very first time I went, I'd already done all that research. I knew who owned everything. I knew what used to be on that site.
He was kind of my built-in tour guide.
Yeah, I have a lot of friends that kind of call me their Vegas tour guide. And a lot of people ask me, advice if they're going out there, if they don't go very often or they've never been. They consider me to be the Vegas tour guide, because I could be walking down the strip with a friend and I'll be like, that used to be, the Stardust or, whatever it might be. And so, yeah, to answer your question, I think for both of us, it was love at first sight.
I'm exactly the same way. I'm the king of useless information, not just Vegas related, but in general on so many different things. And it drives my wife or anybody else that I go to Vegas with nuts, because we will be walking down the strip and I will spout off some random useless fact about something I saw in a movie or something I read online or something in a book or whatever. So I'm right there with you. I completely get that and completely understand how
that is absolutely Jordan.
On
average, how many trips a year do you guys get down to Las Vegas?
So right now we're up to about 4 trips a year. We've been 20 times together, so that's 20 for her. I had been twice before we went for our first trip together.
And then you've been.
And I actually have been once this year without her. A buddy of mine and I took the junket to Laughlin and then rented a car and drove to Vegas from there and played golf. So I've been 4 times this year. She's only been 3, I guess. But on average, I'd say it's about 4 times a year. And we would absolutely go more. If we lived within driving distance to Vegas, I think we'd probably go every 6 weeks. And I think we probably still wouldn't get tired of it.
Yeah.
Do you have that dream of actually living in Las Vegas? I know my wife and I have many times seriously considered real estate in Las Vegas, and it's still somewhere in the back of our minds, maybe as a retirement plan. Is that something you guys have thought about?
It absolutely is. For years now, we've been saying, and I have a target retirement date. I can kind of retire early with my current job. And, since she's in healthcare,
I'll never get to retire.
but she can get a job anywhere. In the
right.
health,
job
in the
relocation is easy.
So, yeah, we plan to live there one day. Now, with the current way real estate is going through the roof, especially in Vegas, that's starting to fade a little bit. But at the very least, we want to move somewhere to where we can drive to Vegas and not have to be at the whim of flight cancellations. And it's a lot cheaper.
Yeah, and I hate to complain of cold, considering, but I definitely want to live somewhere where it's warmer, not to say year round, because Vegas does get cold, but not like, again, I don't want to complain. We live in Missouri, you live in Canada. But anyway, like I said, but, somewhere where you can enjoy the outdoors, year round, essentially.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like you say, it does cool down and it gets colder, and yeah, sure, you need a jacket. But for us, I send pictures of my backyard to my Vegas friends in the middle of February when there's a foot of snow and it's 40 below. And they just look at these photos and say, like, I don't understand how you even live there. Like, how is that?
I don't understand how it either.
I always like to hear the stories of first trips to Vegas, because I know from my own experience, my wife and I, our first trip to Vegas, we stayed at Circus, which we did because we were young and we were poor and it was cheap. We made all the classic Vegas mistakes. We paid full price for show tickets. We nearly got sucked into a timeshare presentation. All of the things that you're not supposed to do, we did. Tell me about your guys' very first Vegas trip.
Yeah, our first trip to Vegas is, I think, still one of our most memorable, and it was almost entirely a good experience. It was in 2013, and the My Vegas game was almost a brand new thing at that time. And I mentioned before, we had a lot more modest means at that time, and so I started playing that My Vegas game a few months out from our trip. And we made a haul on that trip. That game had a lot better rewards back in those days. And we really took advantage of that. We stayed at the Monte Carlo. And so the Monte Carlo holds a special place in our hearts. I don't know if Circus is that way for you.
No.
Because it's a little bit different. But we stayed at the Monte Carlo, and to this day, we love Park MGM. We feel a connection to it because of that trip. But we did so many things on that trip that we probably otherwise wouldn't have been able to afford to do. We had some really nice meals. We ate at the Wynn Buffet, which was a huge splurge for us at that time.
It was, but we messed up.
Well, we'll get to that. But we saw Beatles Love and Zoomanity, and both of those were totally free through My Vegas. You know, that's hundreds of dollars in show tickets that we wouldn't have otherwise been able to do. So in that respect, I think we did that trip right, in that we made our dollar stretch a lot further than we otherwise would have. She really enjoys talking about that first trip to Zoomanity at New York, New York.
Yeah,
because I got pulled up on stage.
Jordan got pulled up on stage on that trip. And anyway, so he got pulled up and towards the end of the show, and they literally laid him down the stage spun around. And so there were these people that they were unbuttoning his shirt. They had him laying on pillows and unbuttoning his belt. And all the while, there was one person on the stage who kept their eyes on me the entire time and kind of kept giving me a thumbs up, thumbs down. I'm assuming because maybe the spouse has gotten upset in the past, with what they're doing. I didn't care. I gave 2 thumbs up. I'm like, go with what you want. I don't care. Like, do whatever you want. I do not care. And I don't know if I've ever seen Jordan as more embarrassed in his life.
It was all right. I'd had a few libations to that point, so I was loosened up pretty good. But it was funny because on the way out of the show, I had numerous people come up to me and be like, "You're the guy that got pulled up on stage." Yeah. I'm like, "Oh, that was me.
That was you."
So, but that trip was awesome. And that one, like I said, that was her first trip. And like we said, it was love at first sight. And we had so much fun on that one. We couldn't wait to come back. And it was a little while before we were able to come back just monetarily. But that trip was awesome.
Yeah, and we did mess up before we went to the Wynn Buffet, though. That was the one thing that we did not do right.
The big mistake we made on that trip.
Vegas got to us.
We had that Wynn Buffet before the Beatles show. And, we might have imbibed a little too much in the hotel room getting ready for dinner. And to this day, we regret not really being able to have a good opinion on the Wynn Buffet because we don't really remember whether it was good or not. We were kind of in a fog for the entire meal. And I mean, you could have fed me anything at that point, and I would have been like, this is really good.
Yeah.
But afterwards,
we did regret that just a little bit.
And to this day, we've never been back to the Wynn Buffet. We really badly want to go. We wanted to go when they were serving it, like small plates to your table. And we had reservations the weekend that they decided to shut that version of it down. So we decided to just cancel our reservation. Since we were going to make a video about it, and that wasn't going to be worthwhile since they were going to close it the next day. So we've never been back, but that first trip was an awesome trip. And I think that really planted the seed for what we were going to do later.
I love that you have good feelings about the hotel that you stayed at on your first trip. I mean, the Monte Carlo, Park MGM, you've got this great, wonderful experience. Whereas us, Circus, if I go there now and I leave, I just feel like I need a shower afterwards. Like shoes are sticky and I need a tetanus shot afterwards. Like it's such I'm happy that you guys had that positive experience, because again, for us, based on, again, not that anything terrible, awful happened. We ate some good meals. We saw Penn and Teller. I think we saw Blue Man Group on that trip. My wife got pulled up with Penn and Teller to help with a magic trick. So, I mean, we had some very positive experiences, but just strictly based on Circus, I'm kind of shocked that we ever went back, quite honestly.
Sure. This may be more information than necessary, but the first time I ever went to Vegas, I had booked Circus. I was going to go with my brother, and he'd been a couple of times, but he didn't have a ton of knowledge about Vegas. And it's one of those things, you look it up and you see Las Vegas Boulevard as the address. So you think, oh, this is on the Strip. It's cheap, looks fun. I had booked Circus, and that's where we were going to stay until a friend of mine forwarded me an email from the MGM Grand. Now, this was 2009, so Vegas was reeling from the Great Recession, really badly reeling from the Great Recession. And the offer my buddy forwarded me from the MGM Grand was for room rate of $39 a night. And with that, you got 2 breakfast, 2 lunch, and 2 dinner buffets daily with your reservation. So my brother and I stayed in a 2-queen room at the MGM Grand, and we each got to eat the buffet for breakfast, lunch, and dinner all 4 days of our trip, for a grand total of $40 per day. $20 a piece. So that was my true first trip to Vegas. And I thought, this is awesome. I mean, I knew, the recession was going on. So I knew that it wasn't always that way. But that gave me a little bit of a taste for what old Vegas was like, with the cheap buffets and the cheap rooms and all that stuff. And that obviously turned around a little bit later, but that was a pretty cool experience, to say the least.
So I do want to talk about the vlog and the videos that you guys post. As I mentioned earlier, I've watched several of them. I really enjoy them. You guys are doing a lot of the same stuff that my wife and I enjoy doing when we're in Vegas. So we've gotten some pretty good ideas from some of the videos that you've posted. What was it that inspired you guys to start vlogging in the first place?
So I think a few years ago, we started watching some Vegas YouTube videos. And this was back when it was a lot less crowded in the market. There's a lot of Vegas vloggers out there today. If you go out on YouTube and search for anything in Las Vegas, you're going to get a couple dozen different, vloggers that have made videos about it. But at the time, there were very few. And one of them was living in Las Vegas. And they just did a lot of live streams. They just walk around and talk about the property and just walk through the casinos. And it was really cool for us because we didn't get to go as often as we would like. And you're watching it on a big flat screen TV, and you just kind of feel like you're there. And we thought, that would be a lot of fun to do. And there's no reason why we couldn't do that. Why don't we just give that a shot? And also, I think we thought, if nobody else watches it, big deal. It's going to serve kind of as a scrapbook for ourselves. It's kind of just to preserve our own memories. We can watch those back. If nobody else wants to watch it, we'll want to watch it back in 20 years and have those memories preserved. So it was almost as much that at the beginning.
Yeah, it was kind of more of by no means did we think, we were going to get a whole lot of followers at first.
That anybody was going to want to watch us.
Yeah. It was just more kind of a passion thing, I guess. It was just, for us. It's
been a passion project from day one, just a kind of a creative outlet to just do more research on Vegas and inspire us to do different things we haven't done before, because we might be able to make a video out of it. And, we started on YouTube. We tried to start on YouTube, and I realized just how tough it was to get anybody to watch your YouTube videos. I mean, if you don't already have some type of following elsewhere on social media, you can just forget about it. And so that kind of drove us to Facebook, and we created our Facebook page.
And that grew.
And that grew mostly with friends and family at the beginning. And then after a few trips, it kind of took off a little bit, and we got up to a few thousand followers on there. And then that's when we turned our attention back to YouTube, because at that point, YouTube had become a really big deal. And we still thought, we can do that if we just really want to put in a little bit of work. And so we're still a big time work in progress. I like to go back to some of the big YouTubers and go back and look at their early stuff, because it makes me feel better about our stuff, and especially our early stuff, because, sometimes I'll watch some of our early videos and I'll be like, it's cringeworthy. I'm like, but, I leave them out there. I don't take them down. I leave them out there, and I hopefully people can kind of follow the trail and be like, okay, these are getting better. Now, sometimes I'll go back and look at one I made 2 months ago, and I'll be like, oh, that's way better than what I'm making now. I've got to figure out how to keep moving forward and not regress and start making worse videos. But, it all comes down to getting content while you're out there. And that's the hardest thing, is interrupting your vacation by constantly having a camera in your hand. We don't have the luxury of being able to go out there and stay for 10 days because our schedules don't allow it. So if we're there for 3 nights, sometimes we feel like we're kind of hurting our vacation because we're constantly trying to get that shot or that clip or, whatever it might be.
That experience.
And, we don't want to ruin a great meal by trying to have a camera out and video ourselves the whole time. So that's a tough balance. But, really, just long story short, it really started as a passion project, and it just kind of grew from there.
I love that it started as a passion project for you guys, because it was very similar for me with the podcast, in that I had sort of become the de facto Vegas expert for my friends because of the number of trips that I was making down there. I had it in the back of my head that I wanted to start a podcast, but I wasn't exactly sure what I wanted to do. And then as I got people asking me more and more about Las Vegas, I thought, okay, cool. Yeah, this could be a podcast. And if it's just me and a few of my friends that listen, that's cool. One of the things that I had some issues with was trying to sort of hammer out a niche for my podcast, because in a similar world as the vlogging world, there are dozens of other Vegas related podcasts out there. Now, for the most part, most of them are about gambling or partying. Very few are sort of covering the bases and diving deep into stories and things like that. So that's kind of, I would like to say that's kind of where I found my niche. Did you guys struggle to find a niche for your vlogs, to something to set you apart from all of the other Vegas vlogs that are out there?
Yeah, I would say it still is to this day. You know, I don't think we still necessarily have a style. Room tours and property walkthroughs are kind of what we like to do the most, I think. You know, food vlogs are hard. We watch quite a few of those, and those are difficult to do. And so I think we're still trying to find that, you know, our little place in the vlogging community, because we do live stream some, but we're not live streamers. We do food videos occasionally, but we're not food vloggers. So
I think we just kind of want to bring whatever we think is something that someone will enjoy, or something that we think, you know, people would like to see to them. It's kind of just
something that's going to be helpful.
Yeah. I mean, it's just something that's going to be helpful for people who have, you know, whether it's their first time to Vegas or they've been to Vegas several times. We don't really have that niche quite yet. And I think that in itself maybe sets us apart just a little bit, is that we don't have that.
Is that we're all over the place.
We're all over the place.
I must say, I find it kind of comforting to know that I'm not the only one that struggles with this whole idea of finding the balance between enjoying my vacation and coming up with content ideas while I'm there. Because I know from previous trips and previous years, when I was going down 7 or 8 times in a year, I was booking myself for 3 or 4 interviews while I was down for a 3 or 4 day period. And at the same time, trying to take notes for trip report episodes. And it was hard. Like it got to the point where those vacations didn't feel like vacations anymore. They felt like work trips. Like it was almost risking not enjoying the trip to Vegas.
Yeah, absolutely. As a matter of fact, at the early stages of when we just had a Facebook page and we weren't really on YouTube yet, I think I got in trouble a few times. I think I got told by my wife, you know, put the camera down, or let's just enjoy our vacation.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you signed on for this, you know, we said we were going to do this.
I've been a lot better recently.
We said we were going to do this. Yeah. It's just going to take me 30 seconds to get this whole video clip. Just let me do it. And she has gotten a lot better about that. As a matter of fact, she's gotten to the point where, you know, our schedules are so tight. She has actually suggested a few times that I go out there by myself. Mm-hmm. And, you know, just with a couple empty memory cards and the GoPro, and just get a ton of content so that we always have something we can make a video out of whenever things start to dry up.
You touched on this a little bit earlier, and I'm glad that you mentioned it. For me personally, I found that doing the podcast and knowing that I'm going to want to be creating content and doing trip reports has really kind of forced me to step out of my comfort zone, in that when you're traveling to the same city over and over again, it's easy to fall into the rut of staying at the same hotels, eating at the same restaurants, drinking at the same bars. It's really kind of forced me to search out new experiences and new things to do. Has it done that for you guys? Have you sort of been forced to step out of your comfort zone with doing these vlogs?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. We, number one, we're not very, neither one of us have ever been very comfortable on camera. No. So this was a weird choice of a project to do, you know, a passion project to get in front of the camera. So number one, just doing that has caused us to really get outside our comfort zone. As far as the other is concerned, one of our kind of the hallmarks of our Vegas trips has always been that we always do something new. Mm-hmm. We eat somewhere different, maybe 2 really good restaurants that we've never been to before on every single trip. And that's just kind of been our policy ever since we started going, because we didn't want the trips to feel the same. And so that part has been pretty easy. But the real stepping outside your comfort zone part has been getting in front of the camera and just knowing you're going to fail on 9 takes out of 10. And then, you can throw those all away get that one take, even if it's just halfway decent, people aren't going to notice necessarily unless it's just really bad.
In fact, Jordan and I were, before we came on, we were actually, he, not me, I'm not going to take any credit in this. He's kind of kept inventory or track of every restaurant we've ever eaten at. And I think we've eaten at more than 60 different restaurants in our trips. And that's not including the buffets that we've been to. I think we've seen every Cirque show besides one, which is Caw.
Yeah, plus some that have been out. So
right. And so anyway, it is, and we've got all different kinds of restaurants we've been to, but we never try to make the trip the same. We always try to do something different each trip, whether it be the hotel, the restaurant, something along those lines.
And this definitely keeps us moving in that direction. We're not going to go back to a place we made a video about because, unless it was just the best meal you've ever had in your life, we're going to move on and try to find something different. So this definitely has pushed us to keep trying new things for sure.
You guys are up now 3,500 plus subscribers, 200,000 plus total views. When you reach a certain level of subscribers and views when you're on YouTube, you start to maybe garner a little bit of attention for yourselves. Sometimes the offers start coming your way for unique experiences. Has any of that started to happen for you guys yet? Have you had anybody reaching out saying, hey, come and see this and do a review on it, or come stay here, do a review on it? Anything like that started to happen for you guys?
There have been a couple. I think probably the most rewarding thing that ever came out of it was being recognized the first time.
So Jordan and I, we were setting, this has been over a little bit, as a year and a half ago, a year ago. All I know is it was 113 degrees in September out in Vegas, and it was like a record day. And that day we decided to go to the Mirage and go to the dolphin habitat for whatever reason. And so we're sitting outside, honestly, at a table underneath an umbrella, just baking, whether it's in the shade or not, it's hot. And all of a sudden a couple came up and they said, there you are. And we kind of looked at each other. And I'm like, I think you're mistaken. I think you've got the wrong people. And they're like, no. You guys just ended your live. We've been trying to find you guys since you started your live. Never once did it occur to either of us that someone would recognize us. In fact, like I said, we almost made ourselves look like a fool because we both looked at each other and were like, I think you're mistaken.
It was almost like stranger dangerous. Like, who are you? They'd been watching our live stream, and they'd actually been kind of following all the places we'd been, trying to run into us. When the guy says, oh, there they are. And we're like,
we just kind of looked.
Excuse me?
Yeah.
But so that was a cool moment. We haven't gotten a lot of attention yet from anybody as far as the hotels are concerned, except for the one video that we did make. We have one video out there on our channel that's been our most popular by far, and it was at Aria. We had a bad experience at Aria this summer, and that had always been our favorite hotel. So never in our wildest dreams did we think we were going to make a negative video about a hotel. That was never our intent. Our intent was just to present an authentic experience. And that one left a sour taste in our mouths. And so we did make that video, and for whatever reason, it triggered the YouTube algorithm and it
took off.
For us, it went viral. And that did attract the attention of Aria. We were contacted by an executive there. And so that was nice to at least be recognized, no matter how, I guess, it has to be done. But they did make that right for us. And we intend to make a follow-up video to that and let everybody know that, yes, they did reach out to us.
Right.
And they made it right in our eyes. And I think it felt like a genuine attempt, even if it did take a YouTube video to get that. So that was pretty neat. We did meet with the executive from Aria there on our next trip, and he apologized in person, and then he gave us a tour of the Sky Suites at Aria. He took us
renovated ones.
He took us on a tour of one of the Sky Villas there, just to give us, kind of a fun experience, and that was a really neat deal. But
I'll just give a little bit away. When we were at the villa, it was kind of an awkward thing. Here's Jordan and I, and here's one of the executives at Aria, and then he's got an assistant with him, and so it was kind of this weird awkwardness. So I felt the need or compelled to talk with this executive as Jordan was trying to film because he let us film as we were going through. And, when we were in the villa, which was absolutely ridiculous, I just kind of asked him, I said, so what does it take to kind of get this room? I mean, he's like, well, it's not, we don't necessarily ever advertise it. You can't, buy the room. I'm like, well, I mean, I realize that. So either you have to be kind of a celebrity, or you have to have a gambling budget of at least $500,000 to even be considered to this villa. So I'm like, well, I'll never be in this again. So we better get all the pictures that we can.
No kidding. I'll be sure to post a link to that video, your guys' Aria video, in the show notes so that people can get an idea of exactly what the experience was that you had at Aria. I watched that video, and I have to admit I was completely shocked by the condition of the room and the condition of the hotel. But as I say, I'll post a link to the video in the show notes so people can see it for themselves. What is it you guys enjoy doing most when you're in Las Vegas? I mean, for me, I'm a food guy. I'm a show guy. Those are my top two. I enjoy just kind of wandering around, walking the strip, doing some people watching. What is it for you guys? Is it gambling? Is it shows? Is it shopping? Is it eating? Is it drinking? Is it all of the above?
I think it's pretty much all the above for us, honestly. We like to experience it in all different ways, including, like you said, restaurant shows, just walking up and down the strip, people watching. I mean, you're going to get some of the best people watching that you've ever seen in Vegas. And we do gamble. I feel like each trip we go, we tend to gamble less.
We're gambling less and less all the time.
But I mean, if you ever watched any of our videos or live streams, you'll know that we never win. So I think that's probably.
If anybody ever runs into us in a casino, stay away. If we touch a slot machine, it turns to ice immediately. So we tend to gamble less and less all the time. But yeah, food is a big deal for us. We like I said earlier, we always try at least one or two new nice restaurants. We always have to have at least one splurge meal at a really nice restaurant, and then try out a couple of mid-range places that we haven't been before as well. We rarely repeat a restaurant unless we just absolutely love it. And, but yeah, people watching, strolling the strip. If we don't at least stroll the strip for 4 to 6 hours one day, at least once on a trip, we feel like we've really missed out. So we love to do that. So really it's just kind of a combination of everything Vegas has to offer that we do, including gambling, everything up into shop. We don't shop because Vegas more or less is the $3,000 handbags and that sort of thing. That's not in our wheelhouse. And so we don't shop, but we do pretty much everything else there is to do in Vegas.
Whenever I have other content creators or other frequent Vegas visitors on the podcast, I always kind of like to ask them about their favorites. We all have favorites when it comes to places like hotels and restaurants, particularly. So I thought it might kind of be interesting to get your guys' take on your favorites and your picks. And I thought maybe we could break it down into 3 categories. We could do high-end, mid-range, and budget. So why don't we get started with hotels? What are your guys' picks for hotels?
Yeah, we kind of collaborated on this and came up with what we think. We'll start with the high end. If money were no object and we didn't have a budget for a hotel, we would stay at the Wynn or the Encore every time. We had our opportunity to stay at Encore this summer for the first time, and everything about that stay was perfect. The room was in impeccable shape. The service was amazing. Obviously, the atmosphere there, a lot of people will say it's pretentious, but it's nice, obviously. And, they don't put up with anything less. They showed that, when the city reopened from COVID. So I think the Wynn, to us, I think is the gold standard for hotels in Vegas. If money is no object, that's where we would stay. From a mid-range standpoint, I think the Mirage is a good pick. Now, I know the rooms are getting a little bit dated at the Mirage, and recently MGM Resorts said that they were going to sell the operating rights to the hotel, probably because they don't want to put that much more money into it. But it's still perfectly located. It's got probably the best vibe, or one of the best vibes in Vegas. It's got a great
great
pool.
pool.
It's
Yeah.
got affordable dining, and you can walk to anywhere from the Mirage. So from a mid-range standpoint, I would recommend the Mirage to somebody. And then the budget one was kind of difficult for us. We're M Life players. If you watch our channel or follow our Facebook page, you see that we don't have a ton of experience with the Caesars property. So that takes some of those budget places kind of out of our wheelhouse. We don't know a lot about them other than just walking through. But I would even put Park MGM in that budget category. No, it's not as cheap as Luxor or Excalibur, but for what you get there, I think it's a really good value.
Well, and just the location, I think too.
And it's a better location than say Luxor and Excalibur. And it is quite a bit cheaper than say, it's cheaper than even MGM Grand or Mirage. So I don't know if it's a true budget hotel, but it is a good value. So I would put that one in that category if I were looking for an affordable place to stay.
I can't disagree with any of those. I've stayed at Park MGM several times, and I've always actually kind of been blown away by, as you say, you don't think of it as a budget property because it doesn't look like, not to take anything away from Flamingo or Link, which I've stayed at Flamingo tons of times. But it's, as you say, for value wise, I mean, I've had probably more comp rooms from Park MGM than I have from any other property that I've stayed at on the Strip. I've paid as little as $35 a night to stay at Park MGM for a Sunday to Wednesday stay. I've had some great stays from there, even earning comps off of the My Vegas app. So yeah, I can't disagree with you guys on any of those. And I've stayed at the Mirage numerous times as well, and have had amazing experiences, as you say. I mean, it's got a great vibe. It's a great location. I love the Center Bar at the Mirage. Center Bar at Mirage is such a great place to just kind of hang out and people watch. It's in such a great location. You get all those people that are coming out of Beatles Love at the end of the show or going in, and you kind of get a good cross section of people at the bar. And unfortunately, I have never stayed at Wynn, but it is on my bucket list at some point to stay there.
Yeah, I will say when we stayed there, we did that through the Wynn Slots app. And you do have to spend money on the Wynn Slots app in order to be able to book a room. But those 2 nights, because I actually hit a hot streak on the Wynn Slots app and earned the gems or whatever they are in that game, to book that room, those 2 nights cost us $200 all in. We didn't have to pay the resort fee. If you book through that app, you don't have to pay the resort fee. You can opt out of it. So I spent $200 in the Wynn Slots game to be able to book those 2 nights. And that was the all-in cost, was $200 for those 2 nights.
And we actually stayed at Encore.
We booked it at Wynn, but they upgraded us because they didn't have the standard room available. We checked in late at night, so they upgraded us to an Encore suite, and it was just off the charts. It was unbelievable. It was
amazing. And I think as far as the Mirage, what's the most notable thing for me, for whatever reason, walking into that property, it has that, the scent. For whatever reason, Mirage, it just smells like the Mirage. When you walk in, you immediately know you're there. I don't know. That's just one of those resorts that it's super noticeable. And as far as Park MGM, like I said, it's the old Monte Carlo, so it kind of holds a special place in our heart. But I do feel like as far as, budget wise, it's got a lot of, some restaurants in there that cater to, upscale all the way, down to more budget friendly. And so I think it's just a really good option for a lot of people.
It's funny that you mentioned the Mirage Scent. I haven't been there in 2 years, and I'm smelling it right now, like scent memory, right? Like I can just, I don't even know how to describe it other than, as you say, that's the Mirage Scent.
It's scent. I don't know. For whatever reason.
It's really creepy when you're walking through the office at work and somebody's wearing perfume or cologne and you want to walk up to them and go, "You smell like the Mirage," or "You smell like Caesar's Palace." And then all of a sudden you're getting visited by HR. What about for restaurants? I mean, I know, again, for me, that's one of the more important things when I go to Vegas. I love being able to go out and have a good meal somewhere and have a really good dining experience. I have my own personal favorites, but again, I'd kind of like to hear your guys' favorites. And if we can, break it down into that high-end, mid-range, budget-friendly category.
All right, we've got a hard time narrowing. We had a really hard time narrowing this down.
We've been to a lot of places.
I was going to say 60 plus restaurants. I mean, that's tough to narrow down to favorites.
We love to eat and we like to splurge on food. So it's really hard to decide what is high end, what's mid range, what's budget. We threw out obviously all the fast food and the chain stuff. We don't eat at those types of places. That's just not how we do Vegas. We don't eat at a place that we can eat at home. We got to try something that's Vegas specific, or at least not
that
Missouri
we can't get
specific.
here. Right.
To me, the best experience we ever had at a restaurant in Vegas was at the Mayfair Supper Club at Bellagio. From a food standpoint, it was really good, but from an experience standpoint, it was absolutely phenomenal. And it is not cheap. It's an expensive restaurant, but when you consider you're getting the entertainment as well as a really good meal, to me, if I were going to recommend a place, if I had a friend saying I'm going to go one place for a special occasion in Vegas, of the places I've been, that's the one I would recommend. Now, she probably has a different restaurant that she would recommend from a high-end standpoint.
I mean, I love the Mayfair because it did give you the full experience, the show, all of that. And gosh dang it was so hard to try to narrow these down. But a couple more high-end places that I just kind of want to mention are Barry's Downtown Prime at Circa. I thought was excellent. Just the atmosphere, the food was fantastic. I still think like Oscar's at the Plaza downtown. I love that old school Vegas vibe. That's kind of where it's at for me, like Golden Steer, all of that. That's to me kind of just a full experience. And
then places that are more budget friendly. One of our favorite places to hang out in Vegas is Tom's Urban at New York, New York. We love that place. The food is, it's fair. It's above average, but the atmosphere there with the outdoor seating right there on the strip, you can sit indoors or outdoors. They've got a good happy hour there.
Yep.
And then you can eat breakfast, lunch, or dinner there, and you're going to have pretty good food at a Vegas value. I shouldn't say a value. It's still going to be more expensive than you're going to get in Springfield, Missouri,
But I also feel like the portions are bigger.
Yeah. Tom's Urban, and then another one where we keep going back to Park MGM, but La La Noodle at Park MGM is a place that we love. And now, of course, you have to like Asian fare. But I absolutely love Asian food and noodles specifically. La La Noodle is a place that we do go back to over and over again, because I think two people can eat dinner in there, and drinks not included. Two people can come out of there for $50 or $60. And to me, in Vegas, that's a budget meal, unless you want to talk about food courts and all that stuff. I mean, you can obviously eat cheap if you want to eat cheap, but to me, that's a Vegas value, a place like that, $50 to $75 for two to get out of there, out the door. So those are some. We have, like I mentioned, with 60 plus restaurants and all the buffets, we love the buffets too. And, it's kind of sad to see some of those are probably not coming back. Aria's buffet was always one of our favorites, and we'd heard the rumors, and then we asked our contact there about that, and we don't get the feeling that Aria's buffet is ever going to come back, and several of them probably aren't. And so we kind of regret that the buffet is, I don't want to say dying, but it's really dwindled lately in Vegas, because personally, I think those are some of the best value. A lot of people complain about the cost of a buffet, but when you consider that you can try 5 different types of food and all you can eat, it's cheaper than a sit-down restaurant to get. It's basically the same price as paying for 2 entrees at a restaurant, and you can eat 10 different types of food and as much as you want. So the buffet has always been one of our favorites as well.
I think it really depends on the buffet as well, as far as value and price and such. A couple of years ago, it was actually on the last trip my wife and I did together in 2019 in December. I was diamond with Caesars, so I had the $100 celebration dinner thing, and we used it to go to Bacchanal buffet at Caesars. And it was good, and the food was all right. But in all honesty, if I didn't have that $100 credit at the time that we went, it was $50 a person. So out of pocket, it maybe cost me $20 for the two of us to go. But if I didn't have that, I don't think I would have paid the $50 a person. And now that it's up to, I don't even think it's $75.
75.
I definitely wouldn't be paying $75 a person. And I get what you're saying about that ability to be able to try a lot of different things and such. But for $75 a person, I think I would honestly rather go to Golden Steer and have that steakhouse experience and sit.
Oh, absolutely.
And yeah, it's going to cost you more than $75 a person in the long run by the time you buy drinks and your sides or whatever. But I still feel like it's a better experience for the money you're spending.
Definitely agree with you on that. And you mentioned Bacchanal. We ate there for the first time this fall, post-COVID, and I think it was about $75 a person.
Yeah.
And we were underwhelmed.
Yeah.
And we're buffet fans. I love crab legs. That's the biggest draw for me, is to be able to eat unlimited crab legs and seafood just in general. And Bacchanal was underwhelming.
We got a little heat from that, because I feel like a lot of people, for whatever reason, the Bacchanal is their thing, and we were kind of underwhelmed.
I think underwhelmed is the right word. It just didn't seem worth that price. Now, for some people it still might be, but it wasn't our cup of tea.
Mm-hmm.
Frequent Vegas visitors always seem to have some sort of tip or trick that they like to share with people who ask them for advice when they're going to Vegas. For example, one of the pieces I like to share with people is nothing is as close as it looks. That casino or resort that you want to go see might look like it's just down the block, but after you've been walking for 40 minutes, you're going to wish you took a cab or a bus. Do you have anything like that you like to share with people who ask you for advice?
One thing we absolutely always do is make a plan. I know there's a lot of people who say, don't have an itinerary when you go to Vegas. You don't want to be constrained by an itinerary. And that's fine. I get what they're saying, but we always make an itinerary, and it's loose, but we've got a spreadsheet, literally have a spreadsheet that we just add a new tab to for every trip that we go to. And we slot in those things that we absolutely want to do on this trip so that we don't miss them. We make dinner reservations. That's another one, is to make reservations. If there's a place you absolutely want to eat at, make a reservation there. And if you make this itinerary framework, you don't have to follow it. Just build in a lot of free time. You don't have to follow it strictly, but at least have that stuff that you don't want to miss, because otherwise time is going to get away from you. You're going to be walking down the strip, who knows how many drinks deep perhaps, and you're going to forget, hey, I was going to do this today. And then suddenly you're flying home and you're like, I forgot to go there. I forgot to do this. So we do a ton of research, and it's not just because we're trying to make vlogs. It's because we don't want to miss those things that we've been looking forward to. We want to have a plan, just an overall plan.
Well, I think it helps for everybody, honestly. It gives you a little break from, say, gambling. It gives you a plan besides just sitting in the casino and gambling. Because I think regardless, you need, for us, we always need a little bit of a break, a little bit of reprieve, because, we lose. But
you're going to hit a cold streak, and you're going to need something else to do. It
gives you something else to do while you're out there. So that's why we always will make a spreadsheet. And honestly, it kind of is a good idea, because it keeps track of, and that's why we can tell where exactly we've always eaten. So it just kind of recounts all your trips, honestly, a little bit.
And the other one, this one, everybody says this, but I think people don't follow it well enough, and that's to pack accordingly. And I'm looking at her as I say this right now. We've been 20 times together, and she still does not bring sensible footwear. That is Vegas 101 right there, is to bring good footwear, because you're going to walk and walk and walk. And she... without fail, winds up just covered in blisters and still has just fancy shoes in the bag. Or she's injured. Yeah. Just plan accordingly and pack accordingly.
Another thing I will say is that it is dry. It's a dry, it's a desert. It's dry out there. Here in Missouri, it's humid. So we're not used to the dry climate. And one thing that I always pack, and if I don't, I wish I do, and I don't have to buy it there every single time, is chapstick. I'm telling you, chapstick, bring it.
Excellent advice. Guys, if people want to find you online, interact with you, watch your videos, you guys are on all the major social media platforms. How do people reach out and find you?
Yeah, the easiest way is going to be on Facebook. That's where we really started, and it's at Show Me Vegas Mo. That's MO for Missouri. So that's the easiest place to find us. And then on YouTube, just type in the search bar, Show Me Vegas, and you're going to find our channel there. I think we've got enough of a following now that it's going to be one of the first hits, if not the first hit, if you search that on YouTube. So Show Me Vegas, YouTube and Facebook. We are on Instagram, but it's so hard to juggle so many different social media platforms. We don't do a whole lot with Instagram or Twitter. We've got accounts, but I wouldn't lead somebody to them just because we don't utilize them very much. Facebook is where we do primarily all of our usual posts, and then all of our videos go out there to YouTube. So
excellent. Jordan, Ashden, thank you once again for taking time to jump on and chat with me today. Really do appreciate it. It's been a lot of fun getting to know you guys and getting all your Vegas advice and your tips and tricks and your favorite spots around the city. And very, very much looking forward to watching more of your videos. Best of luck to you guys.
You bet.
Thank you.
Once again, if you want to check out Jordan and Ashden's videos, you can find them at Show Me Vegas on YouTube. Also, be sure to follow them on Facebook at Show Me Vegas MO. And of course, you'll be able to find these links in the show notes at jeffdoesvegas.com. And that wraps up another episode of the Jeff Does Vegas podcast. If you've got feedback on this episode of the show, or any other episode for that matter, or you've got suggestions and ideas for topics you'd like me to cover on the podcast, please feel free to reach out to me via Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram at Jeff Does Vegas, or drop me an email directly at jeff@jeffdoesvegas.com. In the meantime, thank you so much for checking out the show. Be sure to follow us wherever you get your podcasts so you'll know the moment new episodes are available. And don't forget to visit jeffdoesvegas.com for past episodes and show notes. The Jeff Does Vegas podcast is a Walker New Media production.